The first time Kale heard her voice, he thought he was losing his mind. It drifted through the pines like smoke, weightless, haunting, impossibly clear despite the distance. He stood at the edge of Thornwood territory, a place where the forest grew so dense that even moonlight struggled to penetrate the canopy. The song had no words he recognized, just melody that twisted around his ribs and squeezed until he couldn't breathe properly. He'd ruled the northern packs for 6 years. In that time, he'd learned to trust nothing that felt like magic. This felt like magic. Kale's wolf stirred beneath his skin, restless in a way it hadn't been since the blood moon 3 winters past. He forced himself to remain still, boots planted in the frost-hardened earth, listening. The voice rose and fell like water over stones, pure, aching, utterly human, and that made no sense at all. There were no humans this deep in the Thornwood. The old boundary treaties saw to that. The closest town was 15 miles south, and those people knew better than to wander north after dark. They'd learned that lesson in blood and folklore, in stories passed down about wolves that walked like men and dragged the foolish into shadows. Yet here was this voice, singing something that sounded like a lullaby for the dead. Do you hear that? His second, Marcus, materialized from the tree line, silver eyes reflecting the quarter moon overhead. The beta's jaw was tight, shoulders tense in a way that meant his instincts were screaming warnings. I hear it. Kale's voice came out rougher than intended. He hadn't spoken in hours, had been running the northern perimeter in wolf form until the song pulled him back into skin. Where's it coming from? Marcus tilted his head, nostrils flaring as he scented the wind. East, maybe 2 miles. But there's something wrong with it. Wrong how? It doesn't move. Voices travel, shift position when someone walks. This one... Marcus frowned, the expression carving deep lines around his mouth. It's rooted, like it's coming from the same spot, hour after hour. Kyle had noticed that too. He'd first heard the singing 3 nights ago, distant enough that he'd dismissed it as wind through hollow trees, or his imagination turning the forest's natural sounds into something human. But last night it had been clearer, closer, and tonight it wrapped around him like a net he couldn't escape. Could be a trap, Marcus said carefully. The Shadowfang pack has been testing our borders. This could be bait. It was a reasonable concern. Lucian Voss, the Shadowfang Alpha, had been growing bold lately, pushing against the territorial lines that had held for decades. A mysterious voice in the woods, designed to lure Kale away from his pack, it fit the bastard's style. But Kale's wolf didn't think it was a trap. His wolf thought it was her. The thought made him bare his teeth at nothing. There was no her. Kale had rejected that possibility years ago, had buried it so deep that even thinking about fated bonds made his chest feel like it was full of broken glass. He'd watched what the mate bond did to his father, watched a strong man crumble into madness when his mate died, watched him tear himself apart from the inside out until there was nothing left but grief and rage. Kale had sworn he'd never let fate put that kind of weapon in anyone's hands. Alpha? Marcus's voice pulled him back. Orders? The song shifted, dropping into a lower register that felt like fingertips trailing down his spine. Kale's hands curled into fists, claws threatening to break through skin. We investigate, he said, but carefully. If this is Shadowfang playing games, I want to know what they're after. Marcus nodded, already shifting his weight in preparation for the change, but Kyle held up a hand, stopping him. Not yet. We go on foot first. Quiet. He wanted to see what, or who, was making that sound before his wolf got close enough to do something stupid. The beast inside him was already too interested, already pushing against his control like it recognized something in that voice. They moved through the forest like ghosts, years of hunting making them nearly silent despite their size. Kale led, following the song like a compass needle pulled north. The temperature dropped as they traveled deeper into the Thornwood, frost crystallizing on tree bark and turning the undergrowth brittle. This part of the territory was old. Ancient, really. The trees here had stood for centuries, their trunks wide as houses and their roots so deep they'd drunk from underground rivers that predated human civilization. Pack lore said the first shifters had been born in forests like this, that wolf spirits still lingered in the darkest groves. Kyle had always dismissed those stories as the kind of mystical nonsense the elders liked to repeat around winter fires. But tonight, with that voice weaving through the darkness and his wolf clawing at his insides, he wasn't so sure. They crested a ridge, and Marcus grabbed his arm, pointing. Below them, barely visible through the trees, stood a house. No, not a house. A mansion. 3 stories of weathered stone and dark windows, so overgrown with ivy that it looked like the forest was slowly consuming it. Kyle had patrolled these woods for years and had never seen this building before, which was impossible. Something that size didn't just hide. The song was coming from the top floor, from a single window where faint light flickered like a dying candle. "What the hell is that place?" Marcus whispered. Kyle didn't answer. He was too busy staring at the house, at the way the shadows around it seemed to move wrong, at the way his wolf had gone completely still, not calm, but frozen in the way prey freezes when it finally understands it's been caught. The voice rose one more time, heartbreakingly clear. And Kale knew, with a certainty that felt like prophecy burning through his veins, that everything was about to change. The house had a name, Marcus discovered. While Kale circled the perimeter like a predator testing a cage, his second had pulled out his phone. Signal was shit this deep in the woods, but he'd downloaded territorial maps before they left. The building showed up on exactly one document, a property deed from 1847. Morningstar Manor, Marcus read, his breath misting in the cold air. Owned by the Crane family. Last recorded inhabitant. He scrolled, frowning. Eleanor Crane, committed to an asylum in 1923. The place has been abandoned ever since. Then explain the light. Kale nodded toward the 3rd floor window where that candle still flickered. The singing had stopped 10 minutes ago, cutting off mid-phrase so abruptly that his wolf had nearly forced the shift in panic. The silence afterward was worse than the song. Marcus had no explanation. Neither did Kale. But standing here analyzing the situation wasn't going to give them answers, and his wolf was growing more agitated with every passing second. "I'm going in," Kale said. "Like hell you are." Marcus stepped in front of him, which took either bravery or stupidity when dealing with an alpha. "This screams trap. We should bring the pack. Do this properly." "No." The word came out sharp enough to make Marcus flinch. Kale forced himself to breathe, to pull back the dominance that wanted to make his second submit. If this is Shadowfang territory play, bringing the whole pack escalates it into something we can't walk back from. And if it's not, then there's someone in that house who's been singing alone in the dark for God knows how long. Someone human, his mind insisted. Someone mine, his wolf snarled back. Kyle ignored them both. "Give me 20 minutes, he said. "If I'm not out by then, you call it in." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew better. You didn't hold the northern packs together by second-guessing your alpha in the field. 20 minutes, then I'm coming in whether you like it or not. Kale approached the manor alone. Up close, the building looked even more decrepit. The stone walls were cracked, bleeding rust-colored stains where old iron fixtures had corroded. The windows on the lower floors were boarded over, but the wood was rotting, hanging by rusted nails. Ivy covered everything, so thick in places that it obscured the architecture entirely. The front door was locked, but the wood was soft with age. One solid kick would break it open. Kale didn't kick it. Instead, he found himself moving around the side of the building, following an instinct he didn't understand. His wolf was leading now, pulling him toward the back where a servant's entrance stood partially hidden behind dead rose bushes. This door wasn't locked. It swung open with a creak that echoed through the interior like a scream. The smell hit him first. Dust, mildew, and something else. Something that made his wolf's ears prick forward with interest. Vanilla and old books, rain-soaked fabric and candle wax. A human scent, feminine and impossibly fresh for a house that was supposed to be abandoned. Cale stepped inside. The entry hall stretched before him, marble floors buried under decades of grime. A grand staircase curved upward into darkness, its banister carved with patterns that his eyes refused to focus on properly. They seemed to shift when he looked directly at them, forming shapes that his brain couldn't quite process. Old magic, his wolf whispered. Ancient. He didn't believe in magic. Shifters were biology, genetics, an evolutionary quirk that science could explain even if humans didn't know about it yet. Magic was what frightened humans called things they didn't understand. But the air in this house tasted wrong. Like time moved differently here. Like the shadows were watching him. Cale climbed the stairs. Each step groaned under his weight, loud enough that anyone in the building would hear him coming. He didn't care about stealth anymore. If someone was here, he wanted them to know he was coming. Wanted to see what they'd do. The second floor was a maze of closed doors and peeling wallpaper. He checked 3 rooms, a library with books rotted to pulp, a sitting room where furniture sat draped in dusty white sheets, a bathroom where the mirror had cracked into a spiderweb pattern that made his reflection look shattered. The 3rd floor was where she was. He knew it before he reached the landing. The hallway here was different, cleaner. The dust wasn't as thick, and the air carried that scent stronger now. Vanilla, and something uniquely her. 4 doors lined the corridor, but only one had light bleeding from underneath. The door at the very end. Cale's hand touched the doorknob before he could think better of it. It was warm, which made no sense in a house this cold. He turned it slowly, carefully, and pushed. The room beyond was impossible. While the rest of the manor rotted, this space was preserved like a museum. A 4-poster bed with clean linens. A wardrobe that looked hand-carved, probably worth a fortune to the right collector. A writing desk near the window where that candle burned, wax pooling on a brass holder. And sitting in a chair by the window, bathed in candlelight and moonshine, was a girl. No, a woman. She looked perhaps 23, 24, with long dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. She wore a nightgown that might have been white once but had faded to cream with age. Her feet were bare, pale against the dark wood floor. She was staring directly at him. "You heard me," she said. Her voice was the one from the song, that same haunting quality that had pulled him through the forest like a fish on a line. "I didn't think anyone could anymore." Cale's wolf slammed against his controls so hard he nearly shifted right there. "Mate," it howled. "Mate. Who are you?" His voice came out barely human. She smiled, and it was the saddest thing he'd ever seen. "Locked," she whispered. "I've been locked here for so long I can't remember my real name." Cale didn't move. Couldn't move. Every instinct screamed contradictions. His wolf demanding he go to her. His mind warning that nothing about this made sense. His body frozen between the 2 warring impulses. "That's not possible," he said finally. "This house has been empty for a century." "Has it?" She tilted her head, and the movement was so fluid, so graceful that it looked almost inhuman. "Time feels different here. Sometimes I think it's been days, sometimes decades." Her eyes, pale gray, almost silver in the candlelight, fixed on him with an intensity that made his breath catch. "You're not human." It wasn't a question. "No," Kyle admitted, because lying felt wrong. Everything about this moment felt suspended, fragile, like speaking too loudly might shatter whatever impossible thing was happening. "How did you know?" "I can see it." She stood, and the movement made the candlelight dance across her skin. "Around you. Like shadows that don't quite match your body. Like something wild wearing human skin." She took a step toward him, bare feet silent on the wooden floor. "What are you?" He should leave. Should turn around and walk out of this room, this house, this entire situation that felt like a trap wrapped in mystery and tied with fate's cruel ribbon. Instead, he heard himself say, "A wolf." Her breath hitched. A shifter. I thought those were just stories my mother told me. Before... She stopped, something painful flashing across her face. Before what? Kyle moved into the room without meaning to, drawn by that expression of old hurt. His wolf purred with satisfaction at the decreased distance between them. Before they locked me away. She wrapped her arms around herself, and Kyle noticed how thin she was. Not starving, but delicate in a way that suggested she hadn't seen sunlight in far too long. I was 7 when it started, the singing. I couldn't stop it. It just came out of me, especially at night. My father said I was sick. My mother said I was cursed. Her smile was bitter. They brought priests, doctors, men with leather bags full of medicines that tasted like poison. And then they decided the only cure was isolation. She gestured to the room, this clean, preserved pocket in a house falling apart. They locked me in the attic, said it was for my own good, said the singing would attract things. Dangerous things. Like me, Kale thought. She'd attracted exactly what they'd feared. How long? He asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. I don't know anymore. She moved to the window, pressing her palm against the glass. I can't leave this room. I've tried. Every door, every window, they won't open for me. It's like there's something keeping me here. Magic. The word sat heavy in Kale's mind. He'd spent his life dismissing such things, but standing in this room with this impossible woman, he couldn't deny what his senses were telling him. The air here thrummed with something old and deliberate. "What's your name?" he asked. She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Sarah. At least, I think it is. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I wake up and I can't remember who I was before this room." The casual horror of that statement hit Kyle like a physical blow. To forget yourself, piece by piece, trapped in a cage you couldn't see. His wolf snarled, furious at the thought of their mate imprisoned. Kale shoved the thought away viciously. She wasn't his mate. Couldn't be. The bond was a myth, or at best a biological impulse that could be ignored. He'd built his entire adult life on that principle. But then why did looking at her feel like something clicking into place? "The door opened for me," he said carefully. "I walked right in." Sarah turned from the window, hope sparking in those silver eyes. "You could leave? Right now?" "Yes." "Then go." The words came out sharp, desperate. "Before it catches you too. Before whatever keeps me here decides it wants you as well." Kyle stepped closer instead. "What if I could break it? Whatever's holding you here." "You can't." But she didn't move away when he approached. "I've tried everything. Breaking the windows, they won't break. Tearing down the door, it repairs itself. Even burning." She stopped, looking away. "I tried to burn it once. The fire wouldn't spread beyond the doorframe." "I'm not human." Kyle could feel his wolf pushing closer to the surface, could feel claws threatening to break through his fingertips. Maybe that makes a difference. Or maybe it makes you vulnerable. Sarah's hand lifted as if to touch him, then fell back to her side. "You should go. I don't even know why I can see you. Others have come before. I could hear them in the house, but they couldn't hear me. Couldn't see the light from my candle. They'd walk right past this door like it wasn't here. But I heard you singing." "Yes." She studied his face like she was trying to memorize it. "Why is that?" "Because you're mine," his wolf insisted. "Because fate doesn't care what I want." "I don't know," Kale lied. Sarah moved closer, and Kale caught her scent fully for the first time. That vanilla sweetness undercut with something else now. Moonlight and frost, wild things and old-growth forests. Impossible for a human. Impossible for someone who'd been locked in a single room for God knows how long. "You're afraid of me," she said softly. "I can see it in how you hold yourself. Not afraid I'll hurt you. Afraid of something else. Too perceptive." Kyle forced himself to hold his ground when she stepped into his space, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "I'm not afraid." Liar. She smiled, and it transformed her face from merely beautiful to devastating. "But that's okay. I'm afraid too." "Of what?" "That you're not real." Her voice broke on the words. "That I've finally lost my mind, and you're just another dream I'll wake up from." Kyle did something he'd sworn he'd never do. He reached out and took her hand. The moment their skin touched, the room exploded with light. The light came from everywhere and nowhere. Silver-white brilliance that should have blinded them both, but somehow didn't. Kyle felt it surge through his hand where it touched Sarah's, racing up his arm like liquid lightning. His wolf roared in recognition, in triumph, in something that felt dangerously close to worship. Then it was gone. The room returned to candlelight and shadows. But everything had changed. Kale could see marks on Sarah's skin now. Faint silver lines that traced patterns up her arms, across her collarbones, disappearing beneath the neckline of her nightgown. They looked like scars, but they moved, shifting and rearranging themselves like living things. And when he looked down at his own hand, he saw matching marks crawling across his palm. "What the hell?" He jerked back, but the lines didn't fade. They pulsed with a soft inner light, settling into a pattern that looked almost like runes. Almost like the carvings on the staircase banister. "You see them too?" Sarah was staring at her arms with an expression caught between wonder and terror. "I've had these since I was a child. They appeared the night before my parents locked me away. I thought I was the only one who could see them." Kyle's mind raced. He'd heard stories, old pack legends that the elders told around winter fires. Tales of wolf spirits that marked their chosen, of bonds that transcended simple biology. He'd dismissed them as metaphor, the kind of mystical nonsense that primitive shifters used to explain things they didn't understand. But the marks on his skin were very real. "This is impossible," he said, even as his wolf preened with satisfaction. "You keep saying that word." Sarah touched one of the silver lines on her wrist, tracing its path. "But you're standing in a room that shouldn't exist, talking to a girl who should be dead, wearing marks that just appeared from nothing. Maybe impossible doesn't mean what you think it does." She had a point. Kale forced himself to think past the panic. "The light. Have you seen it before?" "Never like that. But sometimes, when I sing..." She moved to the window again, a nervous habit he was beginning to recognize. "Sometimes I see things. Visions, maybe. Forests I've never walked through. Wolves running under moonlight. A man with your eyes standing at the edge of darkness." She looked back at him. "I thought they were just dreams. Lonely imaginings from someone going mad in isolation." "They weren't dreams." The certainty settled into Kale's bones. Somehow, impossibly, she'd been seeing him. Seeing his world. "How long have you had the visions?" "Years. They started around the same time the singing became uncontrollable." Sarah's fingers traced the window pane. "Do you know what's happening to us?" "Us." The word carried too much weight, implied a connection Kale wasn't ready to acknowledge. "No," he admitted, "but I know someone who might." The pack's eldest, Mara, was 300 years old if she was a day. She remembered things the rest of them had forgotten, knew lore that predated written records. If anyone could explain this, it would be her. "You're leaving." Sarah's voice went flat, carefully emotionless in a way that suggested she was very familiar with abandonment. "I'm coming back." The words were out before Kale could stop them. His wolf rumbled approval, satisfied that their mate wouldn't be left alone. "Don't." Sarah shook her head. "Don't make promises you can't keep. I've had a century of broken promises. Maybe more. I don't need another. How old are you? The question slipped out, unbidden. She laughed, and the sound was hollow. I don't know. I was 7 when they locked me here. But I should be dead by now, shouldn't I? Everyone I knew is dead. My parents, my siblings, everyone in the town I grew up in, all gone to dust. But I'm still here. Still 7 in my memories and however many decades in reality. Her hands clenched into fists. Whatever curse or magic keeps me in this room, it's keeping me alive too, frozen like an insect in amber. The implications of that hit Kale hard. She'd been alone in this room for over a century. Watching the world outside change through a window she couldn't reach, singing into darkness that never answered. Until now. I'm coming back, he repeated, and this time it felt like an oath. The kind that carried weight in the old ways. The kind his wolf recognized as binding. Sarah studied him for a long moment. Then she crossed the room and picked up something from the writing desk. A leather-bound book, small enough to fit in his jacket pocket. Take this, she said, pressing it into his hands. I've been writing everything down. The visions, the singing, the way time moves wrong in this place. Maybe it will help your friend understand what's happening. Their fingers brushed again, and this time there was no explosion of light. Just a warmth that spread through Kale's chest, settling somewhere near his heart like an ember. The marks, Sarah said softly. Do they hurt you? No. If anything, they felt right. Like his skin had been waiting for them. Good. I'd hate to think I cursed you just by existing. She stepped back, putting distance between them with visible effort. How will you get back in? The house won't let me open the doors. Kyle looked at the door he'd entered through. It stood open still, and he had a feeling it would stay that way. Whatever magic governed this place, it had let him in. Had maybe been waiting for him. It'll let me back, he said with more confidence than he felt. Sarah nodded, wrapping her arms around herself again. She looked so small in that moment. So fragile despite the power that clearly ran through her veins. Kyle? She said as he reached the threshold. He turned back. Don't take too long, please. Her voice cracked. It's been so quiet here. For so long. I don't want to get used to silence again. The plea in her words nearly broke his resolve to leave. I'll be back before dawn, he promised. And as he descended the stairs, Kale wondered when he'd started believing in magic. Marcus was waiting exactly where Kale had left him, though his posture suggested he'd been seconds away from storming the manor himself. 23 minutes, the beta said tersely. I was about to... He stopped, nostrils flaring as he caught Kale's scent. What happened to you? I need to see Mara, now. It's 3 a.m, and she's... Marcus froze, his eyes going wide as they fixed on Kale's hand. What the hell is that? Kale looked down. The silver marks were still visible, glowing faintly against his skin like phosphorescence. He'd hoped they might fade outside the manor, but apparently fate wasn't that merciful. That's what I need Mara to explain. Kale started walking, trusting Marcus to follow. And you don't speak of this to anyone else, not yet. You found something in there. Marcus kept pace easily, his longer stride matching Kale's urgency. Someone. I can smell her on you. Human, but not quite. What is she? I don't know. The admission tasted like failure. And Alpha was supposed to have answers, supposed to understand the threats and mysteries in his territory. But she's been trapped in that house for over 100 years, and these marks appeared when I touched her. Marcus swore under his breath. The old bonds. Kyle, those are just stories. Are they? Kyle held up his marked hand. Because this feels pretty damn real. They ran the rest of the way in wolf form, covering the 15 miles to pack lands in under an hour. The change helped Kyle think, the wolf's simpler perspective cutting through his human confusion. His wolf didn't care about impossible magic or century-old curses. It only knew that their mate was alone in that house. and every minute away from her felt wrong. Mara's cabin sat at the heart of Pack territory, a structure that had stood for longer than any of them could remember. Smoke curled from the chimney despite the late hour. The old wolf rarely slept anymore, claimed she'd done enough sleeping to last several lifetimes. She was waiting on the porch when they arrived, already dressed, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes, milky with cataracts but somehow still seeing more than anyone else, fixed on Cale as he shifted back to human form. "So it's finally happened," she said, her voice like dry leaves rustling. "The song found you." Cale's blood went cold. "You knew. About the house. About her. Sit, Alpha. This is not a conversation for standing." Mara gestured to the chairs on her porch, settling into her rocking chair with the careful movements of someone whose bones remembered too many winters. "Marcus, bring tea. Something tells me we'll be here a while." Marcus hesitated, clearly wanting to stay, but Mara's tone allowed no argument. He disappeared inside. "How long have you known?" Cale demanded once they were alone. "Since before you were born?" Mara pulled her shawl tighter. "Since the prophecy came to me in blood and moonlight, telling me that one day the Northern Pack would have an alpha who could hear what others couldn't. That he would find the girl who sang from shadows, and their meeting would either save us all or damn us completely." "Prophecies." Cale nearly spat the word. "You know I don't believe in—" "Yet you wear the marks of the ancient binding." Mara's gnarled hand shot out with surprising speed, grabbing his wrist and pulling his marked palm into the light spilling from her windows. "Wolf spirit marks. I haven't seen these in 2 centuries. Not since the last great war between our kind and the Shadow Walkers." Shadow Walkers? The term was unfamiliar. Beings that exist between worlds, neither fully spirit nor flesh, neither living nor dead. Mara traced one of the silver lines on his palm, and Cale felt it pulse in response. "The girl in the house. She is one of them, though she likely doesn't know it. Trapped between states, preserved by magic she never asked for." Cale's throat tightened. "She's human. I could smell it on her. She was born human, yes, but something changed her." Mara released his hand. "The singing, did she tell you when it started?" "When she was 7. The age of awakening." Mara nodded as if this confirmed something. "Some humans are born with wolf spirit ancestry buried in their blood. It sleeps, dormant, until something triggers it. Fear, trauma, puberty, any strong emotional catalyst can wake what should have stayed sleeping." "She's part shifter?" That would explain the scent, the way his wolf recognized her as something other than fully human. "No, not a shifter. Something older." Mara's eyes fixed on the middle distance, seeing things Cale couldn't. "Before our kind learned to control the change, before we became what we are now, there were those who walked between wolf and human but could do neither fully. The spirits claimed them, used them as vessels. The singing, that's the spirit trying to communicate through her." Marcus returned with tea, setting it down quietly before taking up a position behind Cale's chair. His presence was supportive, steadying. "Why was she locked away?" Kyle asked, accepting the cup Mara offered. "Because someone knew what she was becoming. Knew that her song would call to things." Mara's smile was grim. "To you, specifically. The wolf spirit marks only appear when a vessel and their fated guardian meet. You're bound now, Alpha. Her survival is tied to yours, and yours to hers." "No." Cale stood abruptly, tea sloshing over the cup's rim. "I don't accept that. I don't believe in fated anything. Belief is irrelevant." Mara's voice carried, steel beneath its age. "The marks are already spreading. Soon they'll cover you both, and when they complete their pattern, the binding will be permanent. You'll share strength, share wounds, share life itself." She paused, letting that sink in. "And if one of you dies, the other follows within hours." The world tilted. Kyle had spent 6 years building walls against exactly this kind of vulnerability. And now fate had reached through those walls and chained him to a woman he'd met once, in a haunted house, under impossible circumstances. How do I break it? Mara's silence was answer enough. There has to be a way. Cale's voice came out too rough, too desperate. He hated the sound of it. Mara sipped her tea with maddening calm. There is always a way, Alpha. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price. Name it. First, tell me, do you want to break the bond because you fear it? Or because you fear what it means about who you are? The old wolf's milky eyes seemed to pierce straight through him. Your father's fate haunts you. I understand, but you are not him, and this girl is not your mother. Kale's hands clenched around the teacup hard enough that the ceramic cracked. Marcus tensed behind him but didn't speak. My father, Kale said carefully, was the strongest alpha the Northern Packs had seen in generations, until my mother died and he lost his mind. He challenged 3 rival alphas in a single month. Fights he should have walked away from. Got half our pack killed in wars that served no purpose except to dull his grief. The old anger burned in his chest. I watched him choose death because he couldn't live without her. I will not become that. So you choose to live without anyone. Mara set down her cup. Tell me, how has that been working for you? 6 years as alpha and you've taken no mate, formed no deep bonds, kept everyone at arm's length. You're strong, yes, effective, but you're alone in a way that's not natural for our kind. I'm not alone. I have the pack. You have people who obey you. That's not the same thing. Mara's voice gentled slightly. But I didn't ask you here to debate your choices. You asked how to break the bond. The answer is simple. Kill the girl. The words hit like a physical blow. Behind him, Marcus inhaled sharply. That's not an option, Kale growled. Then there is no breaking it. Mara picked up her tea again as if she hadn't just suggested murder. The wolf spirit bond can only be severed by death. Either hers or yours, and either way, the other follows soon after. Those are your choices, Alpha. Accept the bond, or end it in blood. Kyle stood abruptly, the broken teacup falling forgotten to the porch. There has to be another way. What about the house, the magic keeping her there? Can we break that instead? Ah, now you're asking better questions. Mara rocked back in her chair, considering. The imprisonment magic is separate from the bond, though the two are likely connected. Someone bound her there for a reason, and I suspect that reason has to do with what she's becoming. The wolf spirit transformation, Marcus said quietly. If she completes it, what happens? She becomes a bridge between worlds, a conduit for power that hasn't walked this earth in centuries. Mara's expression turned grave. And that kind of power attracts attention. Dark attention. There are others who would use her, drain her, twist what she is into a weapon. The Shadowfang Pack, Kale said, pieces clicking together. Lucian's been testing our borders for months. You think he knows about her? I think someone knows. Whether it's Lucian or another threat entirely, I cannot say. Mara gestured to the journal Kyle still carried in his jacket. What did she give you? Kyle pulled out the leather-bound book, handing it over. Mara opened it, her weathered fingers turning pages filled with neat handwriting. Her expression shifted as she read. Surprise, then concern, then something that looked like fear. What is it? Kyle moved closer. She's documented everything. The visions, the patterns in the magic, the way her voice changes when she sings. Mara looked up. She's been studying her own condition for decades, teaching herself the old language, the one the wolf spirits used before shifters learned to speak in human tongues. She pointed to symbols scattered throughout the pages. These are wards, protection magic. She's been teaching herself how to fight whatever's coming. What is coming? That depends on whether you free her or not. Mara closed the journal. As long as she remains in that house, she's contained. Safe, perhaps, but slowly fading. The magic that preserves her also prevents her from completing the transformation. she'll stay suspended forever, or until the binding breaks and she dies. And if we free her, then she completes what she started a century ago, becomes what she was meant to be, and every creature with a taste for power will feel it happen. Mara met his eyes, including Lucian Voss. The Shadowfang Alpha was ruthless, ambitious, and powerful enough to be a genuine threat. If he got his hands on Sarah, on the power she represented. "How do we break the house's binding?" Kale asked. "Blood magic requires blood to unmake it." Mara handed the journal back. Someone of her bloodline must willingly release her. Given that everyone she knew is long dead, that presents a problem. "Unless the magic doesn't recognize death," Marcus interjected. "If it's old enough, it might still consider her family's descendants as viable candidates." "Possible," Mara agreed. "But finding descendants of the Crane family after all this time? That would take resources and time we may not have." Kale's mind raced through options, discarding impossibilities, focusing on what he could control. "The marks. You said they're spreading. How long until the binding completes?" "Days. Perhaps a week at most." Mara stood, her movements stiff, with age. "After that, your fates are permanently entwined. You'll feel what she feels. Her pain will be yours. Her death will be yours." "Then we have a week to figure this out." Kale turned to Marcus. "I need you to research the Crane family. Find out if there are any living descendants. Check records, genealogies, whatever it takes." "And you?" Marcus asked. "I'm going back to her." The decision felt inevitable, like gravity pulling him towards something he couldn't escape. If someone's watching that house, if Lucian or anyone else makes a move, I need to be there. Mara caught his arm as he moved to leave. "Be careful, Alpha. The bond will make you want to protect her at any cost. Don't let it make you reckless. Don't let it make you your father." Kyle pulled free without answering. Because the truth was, he was already willing to burn the world down if it meant keeping Sarah safe. And that terrified him more than any prophecy ever could. The house looked different when Kale returned. Not physically. The same crumbling stone, the same overgrown ivy, the same sense of wrongness that permeated the air. But now he could see the magic woven through it. Silver threads, invisible before, formed a web around the structure. They pulsed with the same light as the marks on his skin. His wolf could feel them too. The beast paced restlessly beneath his skin, agitated by the barrier between him and their mate. Mate. He was trying to stop thinking of her that way, failing spectacularly. The servant's entrance opened at his touch, as he'd known it would. The house recognized him now, had accepted him into whatever twisted enchantment governed this place. Kale climbed the stairs quickly, taking them two at a time. Sarah's door stood open. She was at the window again, her silhouette backlit by pre-dawn gray. She didn't turn when he entered, but her shoulders relaxed fractionally. "You came back," she said softly. "I said I would." "People say a lot of things." She finally looked at him, and Kyle saw exhaustion in the lines around her eyes. "I wasn't sure you'd want to, after whatever happened with the light. The marks." Kyle crossed the room, drawn to her like a compass finding north. "Did you sleep?" "I don't sleep much anymore. Too many dreams that feel more real than waking." She held out her arms, showing him the silver marks. They'd spread since he left, crawling up past her elbows now, forming intricate patterns that looked like constellations. "They're beautiful, aren't they? In a terrible sort of way." "They're a bond." Kyle stopped just out of reach, close enough to catch her scent, vanilla and moonlight, anxiety and something that might have been hope. A permanent one, if we don't stop it. "And you want to stop it." Not a question. Her voice stayed carefully neutral. "I don't know what I want." The honesty felt like weakness. "I spent 6 years building a life where I didn't need anyone. Where no one could have that kind of power over me. Power." Sarah laughed, bitter and sharp. I've been trapped in a single room for a century, forgotten by everyone who ever knew me, slowly losing myself piece by piece. What power could I possibly have over someone like you? The power to destroy me. The words came out raw. If this bond completes, your death becomes mine. Your pain becomes mine. Everything you are gets tangled up with everything I am until there's no separation. Sounds terrifying. Sarah turned back to the window. For you, I mean. For me, it sounds like finally not being alone. The simple honesty of that statement hit harder than any accusation could have. Kyle found himself moving closer, his hand hovering near her shoulder before he caught himself. There's a way to break the house's binding, he said instead. Blood magic can be undone with blood. We need someone from your family line. They're all dead. Sarah's reflection in the glass looked ghostly. I felt it when my mother died. 30 years after they locked me here, I woke up one night and just knew. She was gone. My father followed 5 years later. My sister married and moved away. I don't know what became of her. Descendants could work. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Kale pulled out her journal. You documented everything in here. Names, dates. My second is researching your family tree. If there are any living descendants, we'll find them. Sarah took the journal from his hands, their fingers brushing. The contact sent warmth racing up his arm, settling in his chest. The marks pulsed in response. And if you find someone? She asked. If they agree to release me, what then? Your elder said I'd complete the transformation, that I'd become something dangerous. Mara said you'd become powerful. There's a difference. Is there? Sarah set the journal on her desk. You're afraid of this bond because it gives me power over you. What if freeing me gives me power over everything? What if I become the very thing my parents feared? Then I'll help you control it. The promise was out before Kale could think better of it. His wolf rumbled approval. Why? Sarah turned to face him fully, those silver eyes searching his face. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Because... Kale struggled to find words that weren't a lie. Because leaving you here isn't an option. Because whatever this bond is, you didn't ask for it any more than I did. Because you've been alone long enough. Something shifted in Sarah's expression, a crack in the careful walls she'd built. Your friend, the one who was with you earlier. I could feel him out there, worried about you. Marcus, my second. Kale was still getting used to the fact that she could sense things beyond her room. He thinks I'm making a mistake. Is he wrong? Probably. Kyle moved to the window beside her, looking out at the forest. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. But I'm making it anyway. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the sunrise together. It occurred to Kale that this might be the first time in decades, maybe a century, that Sarah had shared a dawn with another person. The marks, Sarah said quietly. Do they hurt? No. Kale looked down at his hands. The silver lines had spread further, reaching toward his wrists. They feel warm, like recognition. Mine too. Sarah held her hand up next to his, comparing patterns. They're matching, see? The same symbols, the same flow. Like we're two halves of something. We're not. But even as Kale said it, he wasn't sure he believed it anymore. Sarah smiled sadly. You keep telling yourself that. Maybe eventually it'll be true. She lowered her hand. You should go. Your pack will be wondering where their alpha disappeared to. I'm not leaving you again. Kale? Someone's been watching this house, testing our borders. I'm not leaving you unprotected. His wolf snarled agreement, demanding they stay close to their mate. Sarah's eyes widened. You think someone's coming for me? I think someone's been waiting for this, for the bond to form, for you to become vulnerable in a new way. Kale moved closer, close enough that he could feel the heat of her skin. So I'm staying. Sarah didn't argue. Instead, she watched Cale with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between gratitude and grief, as if his presence was both a blessing and a reminder of everything she'd been denied. "There's only one chair," she said finally, gesturing to the room's sparse furnishings. "And the bed is, well, I don't think it would hold someone your size without collapsing. I don't need to sit." Kyle positioned himself near the door, where he could see both the entrance and the window. Guard position. His wolf settled slightly, satisfied with the strategic placement. "You can't just stand there all day." "Watch me." Sarah shook her head, but something that might have been amusement flickered across her face. "You're stubborn." "So I've been told." She moved to her desk, pulling out fresh paper and a pen. "Then I'll work while you brood protectively in the corner. I've been translating some of the older symbols from my visions. Maybe there's something useful in them." They fell into an odd sort of rhythm. Sarah wrote, occasionally reading passages aloud in a language that made Cale's wolf prick its ears with interest. He recognized some of the words, ancient pack dialects that had fallen out of use before his grandfather's time. She spoke them flawlessly, as if the language lived in her bones. Hours passed. Morning light shifted to afternoon gold. Cale's phone buzzed twice, Marcus with updates he'd read later. The marks on his arms continued their slow spread, now reaching past his elbows. Mirror images of the patterns winding up Sarah's skin. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Yes." "What's it like? Being able to leave whenever you want, to run through those forests, to go anywhere." She kept her eyes on her paper, but her pen had stilled. "I've forgotten what wind feels like on my face, what grass feels like under bare feet, what it's like to choose where to go." The longing in her voice was a physical ache. Kyle found himself crossing the room before he'd decided to move. "Tell me about it," he said, leaning against her desk. "Your life before this room." Sarah looked up, surprised. "Why?" "Because you're more than this prison. And I think you need to remember that." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she set down her pen and closed her eyes. "I grew up in Millbrook, small town, smaller minds. My mother was a seamstress, my father a clerk at the general store." A faint smile touched her lips. "I had a sister, Anna, 3 years older. She was beautiful, golden hair, perfect manners, everything I wasn't." "What were you?" "Wild." The smile widened slightly. "I climbed trees and caught frogs and asked too many questions. I liked books more than people, storms more than sunshine. My mother despaired of ever making me into a proper lady." The smile faded. Then the singing started. Kyle waited, giving her space to continue. At first, it was just humming, little tunes that would get stuck in my head. But then the melodies became more complex, more insistent, and I started singing words I didn't know in languages I'd never learned. Sarah opened her eyes, and they were distant with memory. People in town started having dreams, strange ones. They'd see wolves in the streets, hear howling where no wolves should be. The priest said I was touched by demons. "You were touched by something," Cale said quietly, "but not demons." My father was terrified someone would hurt me. A mob, maybe, or the church authorities. So he and my mother made the decision. Her voice went flat. "The attic room. Just until the singing stopped," they said. "Just until I learned to control it." "But you never learned to control it." "No, it got stronger, and one night..." Sarah stood abruptly, moving to the window. "One night I sang a song that made the walls shake. My father came upstairs with a priest and some kind of ritualist, I think. A woman with symbols painted on her hands. They performed a binding. I felt it lock into place like chains around my soul. That's when the imprisonment magic took hold. That's when I stopped being able to leave. The door wouldn't open, the windows wouldn't break, and my family..." She pressed her palm against the glass. They stopped coming to visit. Anna came once, 6 months later. She cried and said she was sorry. Said father had forbidden anyone from seeing me again. That I was too dangerous. Cale felt fury rising in his chest. They abandoned you. They were afraid. Sarah's voice was too understanding, too forgiving. And maybe they were right to be. Look what I've become. Look what's happening now. Marks appearing, bonds forming. You risking your pack's safety to stand, guard over a girl who might be more curse than person. You're not a curse. Cale moved behind her, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. You're someone who deserved better. Deserved family who would fight for you instead of locking you away. Sarah turned, and suddenly they were face to face, barely a breath of space between them. This close, Cale could see flecks of blue in her silver eyes, could count the silver marks that traced across her collarbones like jewelry. You barely know me, she whispered. Why do you care? Because you're mine, his wolf insisted. Because fate chose you for me, and I'm tired of fighting it. But what Cale said was, because you've been fighting alone for 100 years, and I know what that costs. Sarah's hand lifted, hesitating near his chest. The marks. They're pulling us together, aren't they? Making us feel things that might not be real. Maybe. Cale's hand covered hers, pressing her palm against his heart. The marks flared where they touched, warm and bright. Or maybe they're just showing us what was always going to happen. Before either of them could speak again, Cale's wolf surged to attention. He smelled them before he heard them. Foreign wolves, at least 5, circling the house in the darkness that had fallen while they talked. The Shadowfang pack had come calling. Get away from the window. Kyle's voice came out as a growl, his wolf pushing against his skin hard enough that his eyes flashed golden. Sarah stepped back immediately, reading the danger in his posture. What is it? Company. Cale moved to the door, listening. Below, he could hear them now, footsteps too heavy to be human, deliberate and spread out in a hunting pattern. Stay in this room. No matter what you hear, don't leave. Cale? Promise me. He turned, catching her gaze. The fear he saw there made his wolf snarl with protective rage. The magic keeps you safe in here. Out there, you're vulnerable. And you? Sarah's hands clenched into fists. You're going down there alone against however many of them there are? I'm an alpha. It's what I do. Kyle pulled out his phone, sending a rapid text to Marcus. Packlands were 15 miles away, too far for immediate backup. He'd have to hold them off alone. Lock the door behind me. It doesn't lock, remember? But Sarah was already moving toward the desk, grabbing something. A letter opener, silver and sharp. Useless against shifters, but he appreciated the instinct. Be careful. Kyle wanted to touch her, to pull her close and promise he'd come back. Instead, he nodded once and stepped into the hallway. The house felt different now. The magic that had seemed merely oppressive before now felt watchful, anticipatory, as if it had been waiting for this. Kyle descended the stairs silently, letting his wolf rise closer to the surface. His bones ached with the proximity to change, claws pressing against his fingertips. The marks on his arms burned hot, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. They were in the entry hall. 5 wolves, just as he'd sensed. 4 remained in wolf form, massive beasts with dark gray fur and eyes that reflected the moonlight streaming through broken windows. The 5th had shifted to human, and Cale recognized him immediately. Dante, Lucian's second in command. Alpha Kyle. Dante smiled, all teeth and malice. He was naked except for the tactical vest that marked him as pack enforcer. Shifters learned early not to waste clothes on transformations. Funny finding you here, in a house that's supposed to be abandoned. Funny finding Shadowfang wolves on Northern territory. Kyle kept his voice level, though his wolf wanted to rip out the other man's throat. Without permission, without announcement. That's a treaty violation, Dante. Is it? Dante gestured to the wolves flanking him. We're just investigating strange reports. Locals claim they've heard singing from this old place. Disturbing singing. We thought we'd check it out as a courtesy. Your courtesy isn't welcome. Leave. Now. See, I would. Dante took a step forward, and his wolves moved with him in perfect synchronization. But then I caught your scent all over this place. And something else. Something that smells like power and possibility and everything Lucian's been searching for. Kale's claws extended fully. I won't ask again. You won't have to. Dante's smile widened. We're not here for you, Alpha. We're here for the girl. The one whose voice has been calling across Packlands for weeks. The one who's marked you like property. How did they know about the marks? Kale's mind raced even as his body prepared for violence. There's no girl, he lied. Now, that's interesting. Dante tilted his head. Because I can smell her on you. Fresh. And I can see the binding marks crawling up your arms. Wolf spirit bonds. Lucian will be very interested to know those still exist. His expression turned calculating. He'll also be interested to know that the Northern Alpha has found himself a vessel. A bridge to the old power. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. Dante's body began to ripple, preparing for the shift. Last chance, Kale. Step aside. Let us take the girl. Lucian promises she won't be harmed. Just studied. Understood. Utilized for the good of all shifter kind. No. The word was barely out of Kale's mouth before they attacked. The first wolf lunged, jaws aimed for his throat. Kale met it mid-leap, his own transformation tearing through him in a violent rush. Bones snapped and reformed, skin split to reveal fur, humanity falling away in favor of fang and claw. His wolf was larger than the others, an alpha's size, built for dominance and destruction. He caught the attacking wolf by the scruff and slammed it into the marble floor hard enough to crack stone. The beast yelped and scrambled away, limping. Two more came at once, coordinated and vicious. Kyle felt teeth sink into his shoulder, claws rake across his ribs. Pain exploded through him, but worse than his own pain was the echo of it. A phantom ache that he realized with dawning horror was coming from Sarah. The bond. She was feeling what he felt. Rage flooded through him at the thought of her experiencing his pain. Kale threw off one attacker and caught the other by the throat, shaking until bones crunched and the wolf went limp. He dropped it and turned on the remaining two. Dante had shifted now, a wolf as dark as midnight with eyes that gleamed red in the shadows. He was smart enough not to engage directly. Instead, he was circling toward the stairs. Toward Sarah's room. Kyle launched himself across the hall, slamming into Dante with enough force to send them both crashing through the rotted wood of the sitting room door. They rolled, snapping and tearing at each other. Dante was fast, experienced, but Kyle had something the Shadowfang wolf didn't. He had something to protect. Kale's jaws found purchase on Dante's leg and bit down, tasting blood. The other wolf howled and kicked free, stumbling back. For a moment, their eyes met, predator to predator. Then Dante did something Kale didn't expect. He ran, not toward the door, toward the stairs, and his remaining wolves followed, ignoring Kale entirely. They weren't here to fight him. They were here to test the house's defenses, to see if they could reach Sarah. Kale's howl of fury shook the walls as he gave chase. Kale took the stairs 3 at a time, his wolf form too large for the narrow stairwell, but too enraged to care. Wood splintered under his weight. Behind him, he could hear the Shadowfang wolves gaining ground, their claws scrabbling against marble and rotting floorboards. Dante reached the 3rd floor first. He skidded to a halt outside Sarah's door, the other wolves flanking him. Kale watched in horror as Dante shifted back to human, reaching for the doorknob with confidence born of ignorance. The moment his fingers touched the brass, the house screamed. It wasn't a sound, not exactly. More like reality itself recoiling in offense. Silver light exploded from the doorframe, the same color as the marks on Kale's skin. Dante flew backward, slamming into the opposite wall hard enough to crack plaster. His wolves yelped and scattered. The door remained closed. Kyle shifted mid-leap, landing in human form between the Shadowfang wolves and Sarah's room. Blood dripped from the wounds on his shoulder and ribs, already healing but still painful. Through the bond, he felt Sarah's terror, her confusion at the phantom pain she didn't understand. "The house won't let you have her," Kyle said, his voice rough from the transformation. "It never will." Dante pulled himself upright, cradling one arm that bent at an unnatural angle. Broken. His face twisted with pain and fury. What is she? What kind of power does she have that even the old magic protects her? None of your concern. Kyle's claws extended, a warning. "Leave now, or I end this permanently." "Lucian will come himself." Dante's good hand gestured, and his wolves began backing toward the stairs. "When he learns what you're hiding here, he'll bring the entire Shadowfang pack. Your territory will run red, Alpha. All for a girl who's more curse than blessing." "Let him come." Kale took a step forward, letting his wolf show in his eyes. "And you can tell Lucian that the next Shadowfang wolf who crosses into Northern Territory without invitation won't leave alive." Dante's smile was vicious despite his injury. "You've changed, Kyle. The cold Alpha who wanted no attachments, no weaknesses. Now look at you, ready to start a war for a human girl." He laughed, the sound wet with pain. "The bond's already destroyed you. You just don't see it yet." Then he and his wolves were gone, the sound of their retreat echoing through the empty house. Kyle stood frozen, Dante's words circling in his mind like vultures. The bond's already destroyed you. Was it true? Had he already become what he'd sworn he'd never be? An Alpha compromised by emotion, by attachment, by the same weakness that had killed his father? "Kyle?" Sarah's voice came through the door, muffled but clear. "Are you hurt?" The concern in her tone made his chest ache. He looked down at his wounds. The shoulder bite was already closing, pink new skin replacing torn flesh. Accelerated healing, one of the benefits of being a shifter. "I'm fine," he managed. "You're lying. I can feel it." A pause. "I can feel everything. Your pain, your anger, your—" She stopped. "What's happening to us?" Kale leaned his forehead against her door, suddenly exhausted. "The bond. It's progressing faster than Mara predicted. We're starting to share more than just marks. I felt you fighting. Felt the moment one of them bit you." Her voice trembled. "I thought you were dying. I thought—" A shaky breath. "I couldn't get out. I tried. The doors still won't open for me, and all I could do was feel you in pain and know I couldn't help." The helplessness in her words mirror his own frustration. "The house protected you. That's what matters." "Is it?" The doorknob rattled as she tried it again. "You could have died out there while I was safe in my beautiful cage. How is that protection? How is that anything but another kind of prison?" Kale straightened, pressing his palm against the door. On the other side, he felt Sarah do the same. Mirror images separated by wood and ancient magic. "We'll break this binding," he said. "Marcus is close to finding your family line. When we do, I'll be free to become the thing everyone fears." Sarah's voice was quiet now, resigned. "The wolf spirit vessel, the bridge to power, the girl who brings war to your doorstep. That's not, isn't it?" She laughed, bitter and broken. "That man, Dante, he said his Alpha would come for me. That blood would run because of me. How many people will die, Kale? How many will suffer because you decided I was worth saving?" "All of them." The words came out fierce, certain. "Every single one, if that's what it takes." Silence. Then, so soft he almost missed it. "Why?" "Because you're mine. Because the bond chose us and I'm tired of fighting fate." Because I've spent 6 years alone and I didn't realize how cold that was until I felt your warmth. But what he said was, because you deserve to live, not just exist in this room, slowly fading. Actually live. Even if it costs you everything? Kyle closed his eyes, thinking of his father, of the madness that came from loving too deeply, of the wars fought over bonds and the ashes they left behind. Yes, he said anyway. Even then. He felt it through the door. Sarah's sob, quickly stifled. The wave of emotion that crashed through the bond. Gratitude and grief, hope and horror all tangled together. I don't want to be the thing that destroys you, she whispered. You won't be. Kyle hoped he was telling the truth. We'll figure this out. Together. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Found something. Crane descendants exist. 2 surviving members. I'm bringing one to you. ETA 40 minutes. Kyle read the message twice, his heart racing. 40 minutes until they could break Sarah's chains. 40 minutes until she was free to become whatever she was meant to be. 40 minutes until everything changed. They found them, he said through the door. Your family's descendants. They're coming. Sarah's sharp intake of breath was audible even through the wood. Then this is really happening, she said. After all this time. Yes. Kyle? Her voice was small. I'm terrified. Me too. And for once, he meant it. Marcus arrived exactly on time, pulling up in front of Morningstar Manor with headlights cutting through the darkness. A woman stepped out of the passenger seat, mid-50s, graying auburn hair, wearing a practical jacket that suggested she'd been roused from her evening without warning. Kale met them at the entrance, now fully dressed in clothes Marcus had brought. The wounds from the fight had healed completely, leaving only dried blood as evidence. This is Dr. Catherine Wells, Marcus said. Great-great-granddaughter of Anna Crane. Sarah's sister's line. The woman studied the decrepit manor with a mixture of fascination and unease. I teach history at the university. When your associate showed me the genealogy records and told me about this place, I thought it was an elaborate hoax. She looked at Kale. But you're serious. You're claiming my ancestor is alive. In there. After more than a century. I'm claiming nothing, Kale said carefully. Come inside and see for yourself. Catherine followed them through the entry hall, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. When she saw the cracked marble where Kale had slammed the Shadowfang wolf, her step faltered. What happened here? The house had visitors earlier, uninvited ones. Kale led her up the stairs, watching her reaction as the atmosphere changed. She felt it. He could tell by the way her breathing quickened, the way her hand trailed along the banister as if drawn to the carvings there. This place, she whispered. It feels wrong. Like time doesn't work properly. It doesn't, Kyle confirmed. The 3rd floor, that's where she is. The hallway stretched before them, and Kyle saw Catherine's eyes fix on the door at the end, the only one with light bleeding beneath it. Sarah? Kyle called out. Someone's here to see you. Movement inside. Then Sarah's voice strained with emotion. Who? Family, Catherine said, stepping forward. Or close enough to it. I'm Catherine Wells, your sister Anna's great-great-granddaughter. The silence that followed was heavy with 100 years of loneliness and loss. Anna, Sarah finally said, and the name sounded like prayer. She had children. 3. 2 boys and a girl. Catherine approached the door slowly, as if sensing the fragility of the moment. She lived to be 78, died peacefully in her sleep. She left journals, Sarah, volumes of them. And in every single one, she wrote about you. About her sister in the attic. About the guilt that haunted her until her final day. A soft sound from inside the room, something between a laugh and a sob. She remembered me? She never forgot. Catherine's hand touched the door. She tried to come back for you, multiple times. But your father forbade it, and by the time she was old enough to defy him, she couldn't find the house. She searched for years, but it was like Morningstar Manor had vanished from maps and memory. "The binding," Sarah said. "It hides this place from everyone except those called to it," Cale finished. "Those the magic allows." Catherine looked between them, clearly sensing there was more to this story than she'd been told. But to her credit, she didn't press. Instead, she pulled something from her jacket pocket, a small leather journal, worn with age. This was Anna's last journal. She left instructions that it should go to you if you were ever found. Catherine's voice softened. "I didn't believe it was possible until tonight." "Can you slide it under the door?" Sarah asked. "Please?" Catherine knelt and did so. The journal disappeared as Sarah pulled it through from the other side. They waited in silence as pages turned, as Sarah read words written by a sister she'd lost a lifetime ago. Cale could feel emotion pouring through the bond, grief and love and a bittersweet joy that made his throat tight. "She never stopped looking for me," Sarah finally said, wonder in her voice. "Even when everyone told her I was dead or mad or gone, she believed." "She loved you," Catherine said simply. "And I think part of why I agreed to come here, despite how insane it sounded, was because I needed to know. Needed to see if the sister she wrote about with such devotion was real." "I'm real." Sarah's hand appeared under the door, palm up. "An offering. An invitation." Catherine looked at Cale. "What happens if I take her hand?" "The blood binding breaks," Cale said. "She'll be free to leave this room for the first time in over a century." "And the consequences?" "Unknown." He wouldn't lie to her. "She'll complete a transformation that was interrupted. She'll become something powerful, possibly dangerous. And there are people who will want to use that power." Catherine studied the hand under the door, pale, marked with silver that gleamed in the dim light. Then she looked at Cale, reading something in his expression. "You care about her," she said. "This isn't just about breaking a curse." "No," Cale admitted. "It's not." "Then I suppose the question is whether I trust you to protect her when she's vulnerable." Catherine knelt again, her hand hovering over Sarah's. "Whether I trust that freedom is worth the risk." "It is," Sarah said from behind the door. "Even if everything goes wrong. Even if I become the monster they feared. At least I'll have chosen it. At least I'll have lived." Catherine's fingers touched Sarah's palm. Light exploded through the hallway. Blinding, searing, pure as starfire. Cale threw up an arm to shield his eyes. The house shuddered, every board groaning as if the structure itself was crying out. The silver threads of magic he'd learned to see burst into visibility, forming a web that covered every surface. Then they snapped. The sound was like 1,000 mirrors breaking at once. The door to Sarah's room swung open on hinges that screamed with disuse. And standing in the doorway, bathed in moonlight that streamed through windows suddenly cleared of grime, was Sarah. She looked exactly as she had inside the room. Same dark hair, same silver eyes, same delicate frame wrapped in her faded nightgown. But something was different. The air around her shimmered, alive with power barely contained. The marks on her skin blazed brilliant silver, covering her arms, her shoulders, her collarbone in intricate patterns that moved like living things. She took one step forward. Then her legs gave out, and Cale caught her before she hit the floor. Sarah weighed almost nothing in Cale's arms, but the power radiating from her skin made his wolf whine with a mixture of reverence and fear. The marks covering her body pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Or maybe it was her heartbeat. He couldn't tell anymore where one ended and the other began. "I've got you," he murmured, carrying her back into the room that had been her prison. It felt different now, just a room, the oppressive weight of magic finally gone. Catherine followed, her face pale. "Is she Alive. Just overwhelmed. Kale laid Sarah on the bed gently, brushing hair back from her face. Her eyes were open but unfocused, seeing things he couldn't. The transformation. It's happening. What do we do? We wait. Kale took Sarah's hand, feeling the connection between them surge stronger. Through the bond, he could sense what she was experiencing. A century of suppressed power flooding through her all at once, reshaping her from the inside out. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. We have a problem. Shadowfang wolves are gathering at the border. Lucian himself is with them. How many? 20, maybe more. Marcus's jaw tightened. This is it, Kale. If they cross into our territory, it's war. Kale looked down at Sarah, at the woman who'd spent 100 years alone because people feared what she might become. War had always been inevitable the moment he decided she was worth protecting. He'd known that, had accepted it. Call the pack, he said. Full mobilization. If Lucian wants a fight, we'll give him one. Alpha. Marcus hesitated. Are you sure? We could negotiate. Offer territorial concessions. Anything to avoid bloodshed. No. Kale's voice was steel. The Northern Pack doesn't negotiate from fear. And we don't sacrifice the innocent to avoid conflict. Marcus nodded once and disappeared. Catherine was still standing by the door, looking lost. I should go. This is clearly pack business and I'm just... Thank you. Kale met her eyes. What you did tonight gave her a chance at life. That matters. Catherine glanced at Sarah, something like wonder crossing her face. She really is Anna's sister. I can see it now. The bone structure, the way she holds herself. My great-great-grandmother would be so relieved to know she's finally free. She pulled out a business card, setting it on the desk. When this is over, when she's ready, tell her I'd like to meet her properly. To share Anna's journals with her. Then she was gone, leaving Kale alone with Sarah. Her eyes found his, clearer now. You're preparing for battle. Yes. Because of me. Because of choices I made. Kale squeezed her hand. Because some things are worth fighting for. Sarah sat up slowly, and Kale saw that the marks had stopped spreading. They covered her completely now. Arms, shoulders, neck, disappearing beneath her nightgown. She looked ethereal, otherworldly, like moonlight given human form. I can feel them, she said softly. The wolf spirits, they're all around us, in the forest, in the earth. They've been waiting so long for someone who could bridge the gap between their world and this one. She looked at him. That's what I am now. What I've become. Are you afraid? Terrified. She smiled, fragile but real, but also more alive than I've been in a century. I can feel the wind outside, the trees, the wolves gathering at your border. Her smile faded. I can feel their alpha. Lucian. He wants to use me, to control what I've become. He won't get the chance. Kale stood, preparing to leave, to meet his pack and face whatever came next. Sarah caught his wrist. Don't. I have to. No, you don't. She rose, moving to the window. You've spent 6 years being the alpha who stands alone, the one who carries every burden himself. But you're not alone anymore, Kale. The bond. She pressed her palm to the glass. It goes both ways. You've been protecting me. Let me protect you too. Sarah, you just broke free. You can barely stand. You can't... Can't what? She turned and power blazed in her silver eyes. I'm a bridge between worlds, remember? I can speak to the wolf spirits. I can call them. She moved closer, taking both his hands. The marks on their skin aligned perfectly. Pattern matching pattern. Trust me, please. Kyle wanted to argue, wanted to keep her safe, locked away from danger and violence. But looking at her now, powerful, determined, finally free to choose her own path, he realized that protecting her meant trusting her too. What do you need me to do? Sarah's smile was brilliant. Just stay with me, and don't let go. She began to sing. It was the same melody that had drawn him to her that first night, but different now. Stronger. The words were in the old language, the one his wolf recognized. They spoke of ancient pacts, of bonds between spirit and flesh, of power freely given rather than taken by force. The house shuddered. Then the forest itself seemed to wake. Through the window, Cal watched as shapes materialized between the trees, wolves made of silver light and shadow, neither fully spirit nor flesh. There were dozens of them. Hundreds. They moved through the forest like a tide, flowing toward the border where Lucian's pack waited. The Shadowfang Alpha would see them and understand. This territory was protected by more than just shifters now. It was protected by the old magic, by forces that predated their modern pack politics. Sarah's song shifted, softer now, and the spirit wolves settled around Morningstar Manor like guardians. Her voice finally faded, and she swayed. Kale caught her again, holding her steady. "Did it work?" she whispered against his chest. "See for yourself." Through the bond, he showed her what he was seeing through Marcus's eyes. Lucian's retreat. The Shadowfang pack disappearing back into their own territory, unwilling to face what they didn't understand. Sarah's relieved laugh was muffled against his shirt. "We did it. You did it." She pulled back enough to look up at him. "We did it together. That's how this works now, isn't it? The bond. We're stronger together than apart." Kale thought of his father, of the fear that had driven him to isolation. But his father had lost his mate and couldn't survive it. Kale hadn't lost anything. He'd found something, someone, worth being vulnerable for. "Together," he agreed. Sarah's hand came up to cup his face, and when she kissed him, it tasted like moonlight and freedom and promises that neither of them were afraid to make anymore. The marks on their skin blazed one final time, sealing the bond permanently. Two souls intertwined by fate and choice, by magic and will, by loneliness overcome and futures rewritten. Outside, the spirit wolves howled approval into the night. And inside Morningstar Manor, in a room that was no longer a prison, two people who'd spent too long alone finally found home in each other.